let's sort of tell his life story, though. You mentioned that he's from Haynesville, Louisiana.
Haynesville, Louisiana.
And as we talk, hopefully we can blend his voice in a little bit. But he was, if I'm not mistaken, born to a sharecropper family.
Yes.
We was farmers. My dad was a farmer. Before him was a farmer. Everybody was a farmer. If you was black, he was a farmer, you know. Cotton. Cotton was the main crop. We got $250 a bale. So we would make 16, 17, maybe 20 bales a year.
A sharecropper family in Monroe. One of, I think we counted 11 children. He's smack dab kind of in the middle of those, toward the older side when it comes to the brothers, and had a really strong family unit, but left his family early, as did most kids at that particular time. He was, his father was a sharecropper, but my grandfather worked on other people's farms as a kid, or what we would today call a kid, 13 and 14 years of age, where during the week he lived in a barn that was owned by someone else and worked on their farm, and would come home on weekends and then do chores and spend time with the family and then go back to his job on Monday morning.
I remember when we talked to him, he talked a little bit about the financial arrangement that sharecropping entailed.
He had a sneaky way of doing it. You see, he had his own grocery store, he'd go sell the cotton. He'd tell us, well, you almost come out. He's supposed to give us a half of what we made. But we never got it.
It just sort of gobsmacked me that basically the guy who owned the farm also owned the store in town.
Yes.
And so they would sort of farm against credit on groceries at the town store that was owned by the guy who worked the farm. So how did that work? Did he tell you about that?
Yeah, we didn't talk about that a whole lot, but the notion that you were always indebted because you didn't get money, right? They didn't actually pay you. You could go in and trade your service for that of groceries for the week, which was always kind of a moving target. So this week's amount of work could get you this much oats and this much cornmeal, and then next week it might take an extra day to get the same amount of oats and cornmeal. So he did talk about the equity or inequity in the system, particularly around teaching us how to work and work hard and advocate for what we felt like we deserved. But yeah, it was an interesting commerce in that day.
I think he used the word sneaky in the interview, and he could have used a much meaner word, where basically if this amount of cotton harvested gets you this many groceries this week and the next week it changes, then that's not a very equitable arrangement.
Not very equitable at all.
He also talked about just sort of the strangeness of Southern society back then, where even when he was older than certain young women, he would have to call them Miss.
When the little girl was 8 or 9 years old, you had to call her Mrs. Mrs. Junior, Mrs. Suzanne. They want to stop that bullshit to start here. That's why we can't get along. The white people, they teach their kids like they were taught.
The farm on which he worked at the age of 15, 16, there were young girls there that were 5, 6, 7 years old, and he had to refer to them and give them a level of deference that, of course, he as a young man who was working did not receive on their behalf. But he also had to be very careful of not being too friendly with 7-year-old young white women, because that too could be dangerous. So a very tenuous line to walk for him.
It sounds like the racial hierarchy was very strict.
Very strict, very strict. And very interesting in that even in his tutoring and training of his both children and grandchildren, while he didn't expect us to adhere to those things, he made sure that we understood the context and the world in which we lived compared to the world in which he was raised.